Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for May 17th, 2024. Today is Friday, so I'm going to be taking your questions, and I had a whole series of questions around the recent summit, the summit of the last couple of days of Putin and Xi Jinping in China. What this means for the United States and Europe. Can the US and Europe be a part of this? Is this an anti-American operation? Should Americans be worried about it? And there are people out there telling you this is an attack on America. It's not an attack on America. It's an attack on a system that's been adopted by American establishment for the sustaining of a unipolar order based on protecting private corporate cartels over and above the general welfare of the American people. And so I'm going to be discussing a little bit of the details of what's going on with this move to a whole new system, away from the system we're in, which is a system committed to permanent war and permanent austerity, which has no future for you or your family. And the quicker we get out of this system and break away from it into a new strategic and development architecture, the better it will be for everyone on the planet. So let's just start with what is actually happening with the Putin and Xi summit. They are pledging to have even tighter coordination and cooperation than before, that the two nations will work together to enhance their own national interests through cooperation with like-minded sovereign nations. And these are represented in several institutions, such as the BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa Alliance, which has added 5 new members, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, coordination with the Organization of Islamic Countries, and so on. So you have this idea of a multilateral order, multilateral system, as opposed to a unipolar system that benefits one nation or one set of interests. And that's what we're stuck with. Now, Russia will be chairing the BRICS this year, and China will soon take over as chairman of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which means these two alliances will be working out projects for investment in infrastructure, in energy, in physical economic production, for the benefit of their partners. And what Putin and Xi both stressed in their meetings is that this is an inclusive offer that could include the United States and Europe. The cooperation for economic development and security, having political solutions using diplomacy rather than war, and this includes a 2-state solution for Palestine. Now, what's the response from the West and NATO? It's to say this is a threat to our control of the so-called rules-based order. The West is facing defeat in Ukraine, so what's the decision? Go bigger, more weapons, more threats. The continued backing of Israel, and it's what's called a plausible case of genocide against the Palestinians. Do we really want to be complicit in genocide? Color revolution in Georgia, another one of these coups that's underway. The assassination attempt against the Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico. No matter who actually pulled the trigger, it's clear who's targeting him. It's NATO because of his opposition and the opposition of the people that elected him to the war in Ukraine. And more sanctions against Russia and China. Instead of working out diplomacy, try to punish them. And you know what? It's not working. How stupid are these Western leaders that they keep doing what's actually strengthening Russia and China, as opposed to making the point that they wish to make, which is what? Which is that you step down, get out of the way, and let us continue to loot the world. And Russia and China won't do that. And most of the rest of the world is now saying, we won't let you do that either. And so that's the divide in the world. Now, the question then comes up as to, well, who's actually running the U.S.? Why is the U.S. adopting this as a policy option? And what you see is, let me just cite the case first for this being a British policy, even though the British no longer have the strength and the power to implement it. But you have Cameron out front, the foreign minister of Great Britain, saying that the British will now authorize Ukraine to use long-range missiles to strike Russian territory. Why do that? Does he really want a bigger war? Does he really want Great Britain to be a target of Russian hypersonic missiles? What's the point of that? Well, we see this with Grant Shapps, who's the defense minister. And what did he say? The U.S. should follow the United Kingdom's lead, referring to the fact that the U.K. has just signed a long-term agreement to ensure there will be constant weapons shipments to Ukraine. Now, why do the British do this? Well, this is a tradition that goes back to the middle of the 19th century called the Great Game. That's been the British policy, to target any potential coalition of governments that try to assert their independence from essentially what's become the dollar system. For many, many years, it was the pound sterling system. That broke down after World War II. And the Bretton Woods system established the dollar as the major medium of exchange in the world. The dollar has been going through a series of crises going back to 1971 when Nixon separated the dollar from the gold reserve system. The United States is undergoing a physical economic collapse, as is Europe right now. Why? Because of something Putin's doing? No, because of what countries are doing to themselves, using green ideology, using war, using the insistence that the unipolar order sustain control through what they call the rules-based order, which has no real rules except what benefits the corporate cartels. And so this is the policy direction of the existing alliance of the so-called West. And it's collapsing. The war in Ukraine is being lost. The Israelis are being isolated completely by their policy in Gaza. And so we're seeing this fast and sudden shift to a new potential. Now, is this a threat to the United States? Well, what if the United States gave up the idea of being the sole hegemon, the sole superpower in the world, and said, look, let's work together. We can work with you, help you develop your technologies, help you with infrastructure. Maybe we could then even look at U.S. infrastructure, look at German infrastructure, and invest, instead of into weapons, invest into the technologies that are necessary to improve the circumstances of the physical economy of the Western nations. So it means rejecting geopolitics, rejecting wars, rejecting the commitment to protect banks that have become nothing but speculative instruments. We have to move away from this economy that creates debt for the purposes of paying old debt. It doesn't work. You cannot do it. You're just, as they say, kicking the can down the road by increasing the total volume of debt that's coming due. So this requires a change in thinking, what Helga Zepp-LaRouche calls a cognitive leap in the West. Instead of confrontation, instead of geopolitics, divide and conquer, what if we have agreements for mutual benefit, for mutual security? And this is what the Russians are talking about for Ukraine. Instead of Ukraine as a member of NATO, the Russians are willing to give security guarantees to Ukraine in return for security guarantees to Russia. They're willing to engage in trade and other forms of commerce, commercial activity, and so on, but not under conditions where the terms of trade are dictated by the conglomeration of corporate cartels, especially in finance. And so we're seeing a shift. Is it going to be stopped by sanctions? No. Is it going to be stopped by war? No, but you may end up with a world war that will eliminate life on the planet. So instead of going down this direction at full speed, the United States and Europe have to change policy. Don't expect Biden or even Donald Trump to be part of that change in policy. Trump may resist some elements of the globalists, but his solutions don't add up, which is why his last term, he never succeeded in wiping out the deep state because he had too many of them in his cabinet. What's necessary is to have the voices of the public, of the people, pushing forward an idea of the American system, not the present so-called American system, which is really the British system, but the American system, which is one of cooperation, one of mutual beneficial development. And this is the direction we have to go. And this is why we have a couple of campaigns that are leading this. The Diane Sare for U.S. Senate campaign in New York and the Jose Vega for Congress campaign in the Bronx, New York. They represent the kind of leadership that we need in this country. And there are other people who can step forward and offer that kind of leadership, but they need a kick. They need to see that people will respond to those ideas, that people are prepared to speak up to these corrupt officials and say, we're not going with your system anymore. We see a better way. So the best way to do something about this is join our organization, the Schiller Institute, the LaRouche organization. One of the things that we're offering now to help you get on the right page is a free subscription offer for 1 month if you sign up for the Executive Intelligence Review Daily Alert. And I'm posting once again a link to that in the description section. Also today, I'm going to be posting my weekly discussion from 2 days ago with Helga Zepp-LaRouche, where we took up a lot of these issues. And finally, my article on the origins of Zionism and how Zionism is being used as a tool of the British Empire. It doesn't control the British Empire. It was a tool created by the British as part of their great game geopolitical doctrine from the end of the 19th century to try to give them control over the world. So that's my report for you today. Thank you for your questions, and please join us. Take advantage of our offers. Sign up as soon as you can.